All right.
What's up, Tim? So what were your original plans when it came to spending time in Mexico?
Well, actually, originally didn't plan on coming to Mexico. My original plans was to spend maybe 3 months on the west coast of America, and San Diego, San Francisco, up in Oregon and Washington, Seattle and stuff,
Okay.
between nature and city. And I spent 5 weeks in California, a lot of time in San Francisco, where I'm originally from, and then also San Diego for the first time. And I literally was so far over budget on my vacation that Mexico became the new reality for me. If I wanted to do my full 3-month vacation, it was not going to be possible to do it in the United States. America's extremely expensive, especially California, and then we're dealing with record high inflation right now, which really just exacerbates the situation. And so for me, just going out and grabbing simple meals, and stuff became extremely expensive. And
I could imagine.
Just to go have a beer or something, it's like, beers are $9-10, so it's I was so far over budget, and that's why I came to Mexico, and it's kind of saved my vacation for me.
Do you have some, after spending this time in Mexico, because you've been here for 2.5 months, as we previously talked about, is there some dissatisfaction you're feeling now after having been these 2.5 months in Mexico and comparing to being back in the US? Is there any, and if so, what?
Like dissatisfaction with America?
Yes.
Or
yes.
well, yeah, it's I love my country. It's great. It's provided me to be able to make a great living and have nice things, and America is definitely one of the best countries in the world. But yeah, right now it's becoming extremely hard for I think normal, regular people just to survive. Between skyrocketing rents and just basic, basic food and basic household survival stuff it's so expensive. It's becoming difficult. People have to just grind all the time, and you have to get second jobs or whatever if you're not making a really good salary. And so it's really just expensive. It's becoming more expensive than it's worth. I'm able in my time here to just live more comfortably, not work as hard, and just kind of relax a little bit more. And everything from rent to food is just much more affordable.
At the peak of your spending, how do they compare? How does the peak of your spending in Tijuana compared to some of the peak of your spending in San Francisco, which I would assume is the most expensive?
Yeah, that was the most expensive. I guess I'm not. I don't have the budget exactly to how much I spent there, but I spent 3 weeks in San Francisco, and I would say, and I am kind of some little frivolous with the money on vacation, so it's not like I was budgeting perfectly. But
it's your vacation, enjoy it.
I certainly spent over $1,000 a week in my time in San Francisco, and since I've been in Tijuana, I'm probably spending closer to like maybe less than $500 a week here, so I would say almost as much as a third, probably even less than that actually, maybe a quarter of the price here. My budget's not perfect, but I've been spending a lot less money and doing the same things I like to do on vacation, which is go out and eat at different restaurants and explore the culinary of the city and enjoy local craft brews and stuff like that. Just try to go to a lot of local fooderies and drinkeries and stuff. And
so less than 500, would that be 400, or would you approximate the 450 a week?
Well, I'm trying to think, because I spend about $150 a week just on a hotel, and gosh, sometimes if I take a girl out or something, or do something special, you have an extra expense, but otherwise, just like for me eating and drinking some beers and stuff, I'm certainly spending probably less than $20 a day, 25 bucks a day on average, and less than $25 on rent every day. certainly less than $50 a day. Whereas when I was in San Francisco, it was more like in the $150 a day type of range. So
Okay.
so yeah, I'd say yeah, somewhere between a quarter and a third as much money.
A quarter or a third, yeah.
Yeah, probably
That's
a
big
quarter is more accurate, to be honest.
Oh,
So,
okay.
Yeah, I don't have my numbers perfect. But
Okay, so approximately a quarter of what you spend,
yeah.
of what you spent in San Francisco, you can spend over here in a week.
Which-
So like $1,000 a week in San Francisco, as opposed to 250 a week here.
It was yeah. Well, I probably spend more than 250 a week here,
Yeah.
but it was more than 1,000 in San Francisco.
More than 1,000.
Yeah, I spent I was there for 3 weeks and I probably spent $5,000 in my time there, maybe even more. So it was.
Ooh, you spend more than 1,500 a week if you 5,000 divided by 3 weeks.
Yeah, it was. I remember.
That's a lot of freaking money.
Yeah, it was a lot of money, and it was the beginning of my vacation, so I wasn't budgeting too great. But I remember like going to a restaurant and just having like a simple seafood pasta dish and a glass of wine, and by the time with the expected tip in America, which is like 20%, then I spent $70 just on a meal for myself with like one drink, and it was. There was a small amount of seafood in there, but at the end of the day, it was a pasta dish. You know what I mean? So that's a little bit ridiculous for anywhere. So yeah, basically a quarter of the price, which if you equate it to what I'm trying to measure, and that's 4 times as long of a vacation for me if you think about it that way, because vacation ends once the money runs low.
So if you're spending like 1,600 is more closer. If you spend $5,000 in 3 weeks, that's a little bit over $1,600 a week.
Yeah.
Over here, if you're spending less than $500 a week, we can call it 400.
Yeah. Probably. Yeah.
Yeah. That's a huge difference. We're talking a quarter. You're spending a quarter of what you're spending.
Yeah, and probably like 350, because I think about $50 a day.
Yeah.
So let's say $350 is probably pretty close to my average here.
A week.
And or $350 a week, excuse me.
Exactly.
And San Francisco, like I said, it was the beginning of the vacation, so I was not as conscious of my budget as I am at the end of my vacation right now. But it was just going out and getting food, and then going out and having a few drinks, in the evening was just so expensive.
Yeah.
And the hostels were, almost twice as much, so
Is the United States overpriced?
of course, absolutely, it's not quite the juice is not worth the squeeze, as they say, so don't get me wrong, you can go there and you can live frivolously and you can make a good living and you can save money. Like I cannot make money in Mexico like I can in America. I'm gonna have to go back to America to make money. But at the same time, I can't live in America the same way that I can in Mexico. So it's not worth it. I mean, like I said, I love America, and we're the #1 economy in the world, and we're a great country. But we do have a lot of problems too with just our whole healthcare system is a big scam. You know what I mean? If you go to older countries than us in Europe and around a lot of the world, actually, they have much better healthcare. They have university available. We're making our population dumber by making university unaffordable. So
so America is really great still.
I mean, don't get me wrong. It's a great country. It has a lot to offer. If you want to be rich, America is one of the best countries to move to if your goal is to be rich. But I've traveled to Scandinavian countries and stuff, and they might not have the ability to get rich like an American, but the quality of lifestyle there is just better. People are happy. They have the university, healthcare, and so the quality of life is not #1 in America for everybody. It's really good for the wealthy people, but the divide between normal people is becoming larger and larger by the day.
It's very interesting you bring up the fact that a lot of people from the outside countries, they can't make the same incomes that people in the United States make. I always pictured the best way to do things would be stay in the country of your origin, but if you have some great business idea or you have some great talent and you know for sure you can go to America and you can like kill it there, then go ahead and do that. But for the most part, I feel like people, especially these days, they're better off just staying where they're born or where they come from, unless it's a really like terrible place to be.
Yeah.
And then they can develop their skills and education, you know, without getting into debt and things like that. The nightmares of being an American citizen where you get into debt because of school. Because at the end of the day, how much of an advantage of it is it when you're let's say when you finish medical school or when you finish whatever type of schooling and you're $1 million in the hole, and some of these people they can't even get out of that hole their entire lives. It's a nightmare if you think about it.
Absolutely. Yeah, school, and for me, yeah, it wasn't realistic for me for a multitude of reasons, but that being one of them. Personally, I'm a carpenter, so I got paid to learn a trade, you know. I worked for other people and got paid to learn a trade, and I have my own business now in Denver, Colorado, that I'm able to make a very healthy living on. It's maybe not the most ideal work that people want to do, but the idea of not having any debt and being able to get paid to learn your craft as opposed to building up hundreds of thousands of dollars and maybe not even having a job available, because there's so many people who get the degree and then their career is in a different field that's completely, their degree is useless in their field. So
that's the big scam. That's the big scam of when people go to school and they get in all this debt, and then after they finish school and they're in all this debt, they can't even find a job.
Right.
And then they have to go back to working some job that's not paying them very much, and they still have all this debt, which just ruins their entire quality of life. On top of the fact that you just mentioned how expensive it is to live in the United States. So what the hell are people doing to other people? What the hell is the education system doing to people? The government, what are they doing to people? They're destroying people's lives like this.
Yeah, it's just for me, it all comes down to just wealth inequality is my biggest concern in America, and that's what it really boils down to, that causes all of these problems. You know, if you look at a lot of countries in Europe and stuff where CEOs of companies compared to the lowest paid worker in the company, maybe it's like a 15 or 20 to 1 difference. You know, the CEO is making 20 times as much. In America, it's like almost 500 times as much. So it's greed to excess. You know, certainly people who work harder and maybe spent more time in school and they work very important jobs. I believe in capitalism, and I do believe certain people who work harder deserve to make more than, you know, people who don't want to work as hard or aren't as talented. But there has to be a cap on it. Like how much do you really need, you know? And that's what our problem in America. The top 1% owns over 50% of everything in America, which seems kind of ridiculous, you know. So it's wealth inequality. It's why it's the country that some people call great, because you can get rich in it. It does have that ability, but it's causing a lot of problems that are going to be exacerbated pretty soon, I think, with our economy for the middle and lower income people. So.
But in a lot of countries in Europe, you have the opportunity to like go on vacation for like 1 month, you know, at your lower paying regular job as a clerk, and then you have healthcare all the time if you crash your skull somewhere, and you can get a CAT scan and all this stuff. Like, but the society is paying into the tax system for this, and then people feel safe and secure within their society, at least under that system in general.
Yeah.
That's why it seems like very socialistic and things like that. But in America, it's like you can just be left on the street and, you know, people just walk by you. And it's quite complicated.
That's why there's more homeless people in America than probably any other country in the world, I would imagine. I don't know the
California, especially.
In California, I don't know the statistics on that, but
for me, it's like I don't understand why no one does anything more about this homeless situation. I mean, do these, you know, like flashy, ritzy people actually want to intermingle on the streets with dirty, stinky, smelly, sad, unhappy homeless people on the street, you know, like why not try to do something a little bit more than just
because they could just
handing them a quarter or something on the street.
They could just avoid those neighborhoods and stay in their rich houses, and you know, I think that's
downtown
what
San
it is.
Diego, downtown LA, downtown San Francisco, you know, you want to walk around the city and enjoy stuff at nightlife and go out and eat and spend. I mean, then you just are limited to one area of your city. But I mean, just, you know, find a way, some housing at least. There's got to be a housing tax or homeless tax for these hotels in California. You know, there's like a tourist tax and a resort tax when the place isn't even a fucking resort, and all these things. If there was a homeless tax, I would feel pretty good about that, you know, like, oh wow, yeah, I see all these homeless people, and there's a tax for that, and hopefully that's going towards something. But in general, that doesn't seem to be even a thought about in this way.
I have faith in America, though. You know, we have the you know, our capitalistic system, and we are the #1 economy in the world. And the other thing is that America is young. We're kind of an infant nation compared to a lot of these European countries. So I still feel like we're going through some growing pains where you know, we're not used to having so many people and some of the problems we have now. But yeah, our politicians certainly need to do more to lessen the divide in wealth, because there's so many homeless people, and some people have you know, 10 houses and 9 of them are empty.
Exactly.
I heard if you go and vote, your vote counts. America.
Some of my biggest dissatisfactions with just the overall infrastructure is, unless you live in a big city, which we know how unaffordable living in a big city is, how do you get around anywhere without a car? My whole thing is, I made this joke about, you know what, communism in America exists when it comes to transportation, because you have no choice but to have a car. If you're missing an onion or a tomato at home, very often, more often than not, and you're not living in a big city, and you're living in a suburb, or even smaller, you're stuck in a car driving for half an hour just to get a tomato or an onion, and which is ridiculous to me. If you're ever walking on the street outside of a big city, you're more than likely like the only person walking on the street. Have you had experience with this? It's a terrible idea to think that, you know what, so much of the country's not built for walking or biking. Biking's even worse. I remember living in Orange County and trying to get around on a bike. The roads are so lousy and not built for biking that I got so many flat tires I just gave up on it, because there was no point of keep riding a bike that was just going to keep getting flat tires.
I believe in Pete Buttigieg. He's going to help fix the infrastructure, like he said. Infrastructure. Pete Buttigieg.
Oh, okay. Who is he? If you can
He's the
elaborate.
Secretary of Transportation.
He ran for president a couple years ago, I think. I lived in a city called Sioux Falls, South Dakota, which is a city of about 200,000 people for many years, and there they have brutally cold winters. They have a horrible public transportation system, and it's basically either you have a car or you don't see people walking on the street. There's not pedestrians, like you said, and especially with the wintertime, you have to have a vehicle, and sometimes it's difficult for people with you know, the economic circumstances of America right now to be able to afford a decent car. So
the YouTube channel called Not Just Bikes, I've featured it, I've talked about it before on my channel. This man, he's a man who's lived all around the world, and he showed how poor North American infrastructure is. He proved that living in North American cities is some of the most dangerous places to cross the street, some of the worst places to take a bus. When you think about taking a bus that comes once every hour, I don't know, in some places it's even less than that. Usually my experience in Orange County has been, if I want to take a bus, you have to time it properly, and if you don't catch that one, you're waiting 1 hour for the next one.
Right.
Where, for example, when I traveled to Germany, I remember being in Germany, for example, because Bobby, you have experience in Germany. I remember there were buses that were coming every 5 minutes. This was in a major city. This was in Berlin. But I have heard outside of those major cities in Germany, there still is good public transportation. And I remember being in Leipzig, which is a smaller city in Germany where they still have trams, like good efficient trams and buses, and a lot of people are taking them. And you know, overall the foot traffic in America outside of big cities, I think it's very poor.
Yeah.
You know, you need that life. Without that life, without that foot traffic, without the bicycle traffic, you have dead cities. And you can see that in so many suburban areas in the United States, or out, you know, where do they go? Is suburban as small as it gets when it comes to city? I don't exactly know.
There's towns, you know.
Yeah.
I've been in the middle of nowhere, then there's just towns of. But the town is usually small enough to maneuver on foot, you know?
Okay.
But this is one of the reasons America is like the fattest country in the world or whatever, is because we're not walking around or biking around, you know, like most countries are.
And city design. The city design is really poor. That's the man on the channel Not Just Bikes. He proved how American city Canadian as well, Canadian American, and you would have to consider Mexican city design. We're in a downtown area right now, but when you go outside of the downtown area, it's not going to be. Well, you know,
the taxi vans here are very convenient.
Yeah.
You can catch a taxi van like about every 5 minutes.
That's
like
the biggest difference out here. Yeah,
and it's very cheap, very affordable.
Yeah.
But the thing about America is, obviously most of the urban zones are going to have, you know, varying levels of how good their transportation system is, but it's something decent. But you get in these mid-sized towns of less than 500,000 people or less, and American cities are very spread out is the problem. They're very big, so it's not very maneuverable by bike or by foot, you know, and they have a crap transportation system.
They're spread out by design, segregation.
It's very much a car. You have to have a car.
You have to have a car.
It's the only reasonable thing. So.
And you're losing so much of that essence of life when you're inside of a car too much. You're not getting that face-to-face time with people. You're not walking in crowds. You're not biking. You're also not getting the exercise.
And you know that tomato that they were gonna get at the store?
Yeah.
They're gonna leave with like 10 or 11 other things that they didn't even want when they just wanted the tomato.
I can see that. The consumerism as well on top of that.
I mean, they drove all that way. It's like, well, I might as well pick up other things that I don't really need.
Well, consumerism, that's another big problem in America. You know, like you were saying, Bobby, is in Europe, most people they're living life for experience. Everyone's usually getting at least 4 to 7 weeks of paid vacation every year, and they're going and traveling. In America, with the advertisements that are pushed down our throat, and we're so pushed to just consume and buy things in America and buy stuff, you know, and just have more stuff is what, you know, our advertisements for sure are forced down our throat more than anywhere else in the world.
Maybe that's just a way for employees to find a getaway because they can't go on vacation. So it's like, well, I'm just gonna order these things or buy these things, and then that gives them some dopamine satisfaction in a way. I think a little bit.
Yeah.
Or they should just be at the beach for like at least 2 weeks and forgetting about their job for a little while.
I think America is just a big Ponzi scheme, and everyone wants us to buy their stuff. So I don't know, but I don't want to trash America too much. Greatest country in the world.
Oh man! But I think going back really quickly to the whole city design, and with having the masses of people having to be stuck in a car and not getting the walking and the biking, and just not getting the face-to-face experience with people as much. I think that city design is actually a big factor when it comes to all the depression that's going on in America. How can somebody be mentally stable when they're sitting inside of a car by themselves in traffic, when they have to have a car to go buy some food to survive, when they have to have a car to keep a job, and when they're not, they have to pay for the car, which is getting them more in debt if they're not already in debt, or you know.
Plus, there's insurance, gas, maintenance. They're expensive just to maintain.
I had this theory that because of these things, these are the things that are adding a lot to the clinical depression that's going on in America, where the cities are designed poorly, so it's destroying your social life, and then because of being in a car and not being able to, and not exercising, it's also destroying your physical health. So I feel like city design is a big factor when it comes to having a healthy life, and they show that that's why the that channel, that YouTube channel I just referred to earlier, he mentioned how people in the Netherlands are just so happy because everyone's biking everywhere, everyone's walking everywhere. You're getting all this foot traffic. You're seeing people all the time. People are healthy.
Weeks of holiday or vacation.
Yeah, exactly. So also the holiday. Yeah, think about it. I had this theory before that, you know what? I don't think the United States would like its citizens to meet Europeans, because when you meet Europeans, what are some of the first things you talk about? Oh, what's your job? Okay, vacation. And then a lot of Americans, they don't even know what a hostel is. If you think about it, I've been in hostels where I'm in a room with somebody from France. I'm in a room with somebody even from the UK, which the UK is not known for a lot of vacation time, but they're reeling off. We don't talk about money. You know what we start talking about? We start talking about vacation.
Yeah.
A girl from France, one of the first things I remember, I was in Berlin, Germany. A girl from France says, I have 5 weeks a year of vacation. And she says, honestly, like, that's a little too short. I remember hearing that. I'm like, 5 weeks is too short? What?
You're lucky to have 2 weeks in America, unless you're a well-established, CEO or something, you know. When I was in Sweden, I believe they have a mandatory minimum of 7 weeks of paid vacation per year for employees. So and that stuff really is because they know that's necessary for good mental health. It's not two weeks off a year that's not good for people. That's not healthy, you know. So
in a way, I feel like America's operating for the top, the elites. Because I'm sure there are a lot of elites who don't want to take vacation at all. They're just workaholics. That's catering to the elites. I'm sure there are a lot of elites that don't want to take public transportation, that don't want to walk on the street, that don't want to bike, even if they have the money to go live in a place where they can do that, because they're the elite. They're just work-minded. I feel like in a way, America's even designed, if you think about it, for work. It's like, why ride a bike? Why walk? You just get in your freaking car and boom, boom, zoom. Yeah. Work all day, don't go on vacation. It's a country which obviously the majority are not rich, but the laws and everything, the design of the cities is like made for somebody who is rich. And it's like you're living in a rich country. You're living in a country designed for the rich, where that's only like 5% of the population. Right. In a way, that's kind of how
But us American citizens, we know that, you know, and nobody's really truly doing anything to kind of counter that.
I don't think everybody knows that, though. Maybe.
I think they. I don't maybe think... not on so aware, but they suffer when they watch TV and they're like, watch, let's say, Dynasty or something. I don't know, like that's quite old, but like, oh, I wish I could live like that. I have to walk to 7-Eleven. You know, it's kind of like. They know it, you know, but they just, but more people are more keen to knowing why, you know. And there's really great documentary called Hyper-Normalization by Adam Curtis, and this is one explanation about how we all know that the governments do these things to us and we still allow them to do it somehow. It's just so normalized now. It's hyper-normalized, the way that we accept these things. And that kind of has to break a little bit.
Yep. Well, that's why a video like this is being made, so then we can share these experiences. Being 3 Americans that have traveled through, I would say, more of the world than the average American, definitely. Tim, you had that quote. I remember you said that it doesn't matter whether it's the McDonald's worker in Sweden or a top CEO or a doctor. They all get 7 weeks of paid vacation. 7?
Yeah, in Sweden I believe it's 7.
That's a lot.
That's the minimum. Wow. Yeah, that's that sounds really. That's almost 2 months. Like that sounds unrealistic. Probably a lot of Americans aren't maybe aware. But that's.
Well, when Donald Trump said, "Go back to where you come from," you can do well in Sweden.
Yeah,
you know?
I didn't come from Sweden.
No, I know.
I was born and raised in America, so I don't have Swedish citizenship. They probably wouldn't take me. I have nowhere else to go.
Yeah.
Just because I have Swedish blood in me doesn't mean they'll take me, you know? My ancestors were born there, not me.
Yeah, through a grandparent and their documents, you could actually do something. But anyways, that's probably for another topic. So then I was also gonna mention to you, think about Sweden with all that vacation time, and then what else did you notice in Sweden? Everybody who's gone there, I haven't been there yet, I want to go. Everyone who's gone to Sweden, they've noticed something about the health of the people in the masses as well.
The women are all beautiful, and they're not fat. You know, the only people who might be semi-fat are usually older people, because that's just how it goes. You know, you get older and maybe you have injuries or you can't move. But yeah, all the young people are all in shape, and yeah, everybody's walking or biking around a lot. You know, and it's you know, I'm not saying it's a perfect society, but like if you, I think. I haven't done the study, but I think I've heard this Sweden is like one of the happiest countries in the world by certain studies. You know,
I can imagine.
So yeah, it's a little bit more equal. Maybe you don't have the chance to get uber rich like you do in America, but everybody's a little bit happier, and the wealth inequality is not as much as it is a place like here. So.
Yeah, I remember that people have been talking about how they go to Sweden and they don't see fat people over there. And I was like, wow. I mean, that's you can't say that about America at all. Wow.
No,
or Canada,
or Mexico,
or Mexico, where we are right now.
There's a lot of chubby people down here.
Yeah. Okay, so we got Bobby here. I wanted to ask you about your time outside of the United States. After spending all this time outside the United States, what do you look back on in the US and identify as some major problems or things that you do not miss?
Well, I remember like my father was in the military, so I used to live in Turkey for a while in the late 70s, early 80s.
Yeah.
And, you know, coming back to the US at that time, I was really happy to be, because Turkey is a different place than, let's say, Syracuse, New York.
Yeah.
But as I got older and I'd start traveling on my own and realized like the value of things, for me, I feel like the differences was more about race for me than anything else. So I had more of a harder time in the States with race than I did elsewhere, and I felt like the racism was different based on different things.
Yeah.
So I mean, that's my takeaway of like traveling abroad, basically.
Okay. Race.
Comparing it with, I mean, there's so many different aspects, but for me personally, like more personally, it would be about that.
I do have to say, in America, people talk about race a lot more than they really need to.
Yeah.
And it's kind of the funny thing where I always say it like this: what's the fastest way to get rid of racism? Stop talking about it. But people keep talking about it, about it. And I just remember with one of the people I knew who was pretty ignorant, he would go up to people and he thought he was going to eliminate racism. He had good intentions, but the way he was doing things was just literally the opposite. He would go up to people, a group of people, he'd be like, "Oh, this is Andrew, my favorite Asian. Oh, this is, you know, Bill, my favorite white guy." And I just remember, and then oh, this is George, my favorite Mexican.
Sounds pretty racist.
The funny thing is that although and then at the end he says, "Well, I just got rid of racism," and I just remember thinking, oh, like, I know your intentions are good, but you just made it worse. The fastest way to get rid of it is just stop talking about it.
Well,
Once
that's what I felt.
yeah.
You know, like growing up, that's always like some kind of slur or something that has to be said within wherever you are, at work or at school or on the streets or just in an encounter.
Yeah.
And that just started to annoy me. So I really just wanted to sort of get away from that at times. And in Europe, I mean, there are people who are flat out racist, but it's not that many. They don't do it in that way, and they're not interjecting jokes about race into regular conversations.
They're quiet racist.
Yeah, it's different. It's just different.
Yeah.
And I just want to say too, for me as a white person, maybe I don't have that much to say on this subject, but America is like the melting pot of the world, you know. We're built on immigrants and people from different countries. So I would just say that maybe race is more relevant there because we have so many of them within our own country as opposed to a lot of different places.
Yeah, I mean, I would agree. Like the founding fathers were not, they were white.
Yeah.
And then these other people started to mix in. And I think that's thereafter started finding ways to deal with that. Maybe that's where the jokes come from. But I would say that a bit more because, of course, there's slaves. I mean, I'm mixed race, quite mixed with native and black and white.
Okay.
And so I have, you know, I don't really look like either of any of those things, like so much. So most people don't know how to approach me usually. But people who do see these things about me or spot me in some way, so to speak, is I get a lot of negative reactions sometimes. It depends, you know, it depends on circumstances. I don't know, just walking down the street or dealing with people in certain situations, I don't know. But it's a long story, but in general, I think that for me was why I like being in Europe or going outside. I find it a bit racist here in Mexico as well.
Really?
At least for me, like I feel a little bit, people look at me like, where are you from? And, you know, I'm the same color as them when I'm, you know, basically, but I'm not like them. So there's no way for me to be an integrated person here as easily, you know, just by looks. You know, just crossing the street, people always look at me, I feel, in a way that I don't like, you know. So at least that's what I'm perceiving, maybe because of my upbringing in the US, that I have to sometimes feel like that even at my age. You know, just once in a while it happens.
So apart from race, what are the other things that, as you spend time outside of the US, that you don't miss anymore, or that you think that
about America?
Yeah.
That I don't miss about America? I don't really think that there's a sense of community in general. And it's just very like one man for themselves. I had been speaking with, I believe it was Tim, but it could be someone else, where, you know, you have a really good friend. I have friends in Europe. There was I had a bad year here in the States, in San Diego, California.
Yes.
In California in general, but I had to ask friends in like Europe to help me like a bit monetarily or something.
Ooh,
and
wow.
They were very happy to help me out, you know, to loan me some money until I got back on my feet. But I remember living in the US, and if I had asked people these things, they would be like, get a job, what's wrong with you, you know, like
and you had those experiences, right?
I've had those experiences, maybe not so often, but it might have been under certain circumstances, just briefly. But I don't know. I feel like people in Europe are a bit more helpful. You know, I wouldn't say socialistic, but communistic, but a bit more friendly about like these things, because you usually know each other. It's a small country, the EU is a small place. And then if you're within the EU in different countries, you know, everybody sort of knows each other. There's a bit of 6 degrees of separation, maybe even 4 degrees. So I don't know.
Yeah.
That's what I like about Europe, whereas I feel a vast degree of separation in America. So
it's so interesting that you mentioned that, as we're talking about city design. In so many places in America, originally what happened was that the white people always want to be separate from everybody else. And then this in part ties into the city design of you can only get around in a car, because what typically would happen is that white people would want to keep separate from all the other races. So what would they do? Whenever one area got too full of minorities, they would expand out rather than building up. In Europe, they build up, and they mix everyone together. Everyone has a neighbor, maybe of a different race, different color, different ethnicity. In America, people keep going horizontally, and they keep spreading out to where all the white people they're living all the way in the suburbs, and the only way you can get there is by car. They don't have buses going there because they don't want minorities out there. So this is what ties into this.
Well, there's some building laws
separation
in Europe where they're not allowed to build it for their historical reasons, you know, like for the aesthetic, to maintain their historical visual aspect. So usually it's more about money, and they will get rid of, like, let's say like in Berlin, for example, there's an area called Kreuzberg, and that became very popularized by many people traveling from different countries. And of course they had more money than they had more money to spend in Germany or in Berlin at that time. And so it was very cheap to live in Berlin as well. So landlords got keen to this, and then they started to like throw out the people who were in those areas, which were usually Muslim population or Turkish majority. And so there's a lot of older people also who have sort of been thrown out of the area, and I'm not sure where they would go to, because you don't really expand in these places like you were saying, and there's limitation on the building up on top of itself. So I think it's a little bit it's definitely different than in the States, but yeah, I don't know. It's still there, like a bit of capitalistic. It's become Americanized, Europe, very much in the past 20 years, I'd say. And that's a bit of what I think there's an issue in Europe about this, like losing its identity with the countries themselves. As in, like, you go to France, you have wine and cheese and a baguette, but now people are complaining that you would have something else, you know, that's not part of France. And I think that's sad, especially because of colonization.
Yeah.
And yeah, I just the world is kind of fucked up right now, and I think it's just been rattled and shooken up, and I think it's trying to settle, and it's not settling yet.
Are you currently noticing anything changes? Are you seeing changes in real time in Europe that are coming with the Americanization, that are really like giving you a bad taste, or really affecting you in a bad way? And what are they?
I think so, like the products, like Starbucks on every corner, again, like in Europe, and McDonald's, and you know, Mars bars and Doritos and all this kind of stuff. Like that wasn't in Europe a long time ago. Maybe there were a handful, okay, that's fine, but now it's just dominating. It's just there, and it's I don't know, I don't like it. It's a bit of too much overreach.
That's fair.
I feel. It's not, I don't feel like I'm then visiting that country anymore when there's just Starbucks on every corner and McDonald's as well.
Yeah.
So, I mean, America, like you said, is great, but in my idea of great is that it's a great big place that is taking over too much. And it's just not, it's a beast that's not been tamed, or it's not being tamed anymore.
Yeah.
And I did just want to interject on our last subject of the racism and how we kind of segregate ourselves in America, which is very true. But I do also think this could be an ignorant white person talking. I have less, you know, I can't see it from your guys' point of view, but I tend to think that the color green, that money kind of segregates people more than anything.
Yeah, I can see that.
There's plenty of, you know, white people do tend to make the most money, but they don't mind when there's the wealthy black family in their neighborhood. You know what I mean? Maybe there's only a few of them, but so I think the money. I could be wrong and ignorant for saying this, but from my perspective, I think the money segregates more than anything.
Yeah,
I could be
I
wrong
can see
about
that as well. I can see that as well.
Kind of. Depends on which state, maybe. If it's a more liberal state, you know what I mean? If it was a red state, like in Texas or some other places, I mean, I don't know. I can't really pinpoint it because I don't really know these places, but it is like that. I think more money is definitely that, but I wish I knew more, like maybe some football or basketball stars who tried to move into a corporate neighborhood on the suburbs and see how that goes. But I'm sure there's been controversy about these things too within those neighborhoods.
So with both of you right now, I guess we'll go with Tim right now. Anything currently in Tijuana that you've experienced that you wish? What's the one or two things that you've experienced in Tijuana that you wish was in the United States?
Well, definitely the price is number one. That's
Prices,
that's the easiest answer for rent and food and just, you know, everything basically. Besides that, I guess my other good answer would be just the sense of, and you guys kind of alluded to this earlier, but the sense of familia down here, as they say, you know. I don't think they really have foster care. I grew up in foster care in America because my family couldn't take care of me. And in Mexico, they don't really have that because there's always a family member, uncle, aunt, a grandma, a cousin. So there's a real sense of familia down here that I think is kind of lost upon America. Like Bobby said, it's kind of every person for themselves sometimes, and that's not a way to live. We all need each other, and when we're down, we need someone to lift us up, and when we're good, we need to help other people out, you know. And just that sense of family, for sure, I would say, is something that I definitely appreciate about the Mexican culture.
The sense of community, that's so big in life. It really is. I feel I feel often in the United States that is lost. The sense of community, the also the family dynamic. It's just with all the divorces and all the single parents, the single mothers. It's a disaster when you have societies that are built like that. And you, Bobby, are there any things in Tijuana specifically that you would like to, that you wish was more in the United States or even more in Europe? Is there anything that you would take that you could put?
I don't know. I think it's just I would leave like at least Tijuana in this North America hemisphere because I think that it's good to visit here, you know, to come to visit. But I mean, in general, I would like to see Tijuana in the United States or Mexico more in the United States because Mexicans are the ones who lost a lot of land to the United States, and they are the ones who are kind of a bit modern day slaves to the Western United States in some way, and they're not allowed to come in, and they're looked down upon, and I think it would just boost the morale of people here in Tijuana. And in the United States, you know, people get to understand that Mexican people are people and they do have these values, like Tim said, and maybe it's admirable to like kind of follow those a little bit, and maybe prices won't be so high, you know, like maybe there's a value of things more than a profit on things.
And America would not work without Mexican labor. We have a huge labor shortage right now, so all the complaining about Mexican people is ridiculous. We need their labor, and they do a lot of the jobs that, you know, frankly, white people don't want to do. So
this tight border, you know, it's like a butthole, you know, it's just really clenched, and it's like, why? You know, you can loosen up a little bit and have fun.
That was definitely before 9/11. Apparently 9/11 just really made things more difficult.
That's another
9/11
topic,
and
though.
COVID, but yeah, those are different.
Topic.
Yeah, those are different topics. So, how long have you been traveling in Mexico?
I would say the past on and off, just like as Tim was saying, to sort of conserve money or save money, because I basically don't have a place to live in the U.S. at the moment. So I would say the past few months.
Few months?
Yeah.
And then were you going back and forth?
New Year.
Were you going back and forth from the U.S. to here?
Yeah, a little bit on and off.
Yeah. So I guess pricing.
Because I had never been to Mexico really before that. So I had. I've been to border towns, like I used to live in Arizona, and I've been to some border towns there, Nogales, and I think it's called Big Bear or Bear Ridge or something in Arizona, sort of resort area. But you know, those are two totally different things, ways of life as well. But I had never been really very inland, except Puerto Vallarta many years ago. So I traveled a bit in Mexico, and I have a better outlook for it now. And that it contributes to having lived in Europe on and off, or been in Europe. So.
Yeah, if I would say that I would really like to see a lot more street food going on in the United States. I know there are a lot of laws that prevent people from just pulling up to the sidewalk and selling tacos or whatever it may be, but I would like to see a lot more street food. Not just these food trucks all the time. Of course, that food trucks are kind of the legal way of having street food in the United States, but think about how much you're missing with a food truck. The thing about people making street food in a country such as Mexico, or when you're buying it in, let's say, Morocco, Europe doesn't do, depending on where you are, Europe doesn't do that much street food either. But I remember Turkey, there was quite a bit of street food as well. And the thing I would like to see is that you have more street food going on, because when you buy street food in these countries, you get to see the whole process. You don't see some guy. The problem with the food truck is that there's another degree of separation. There's a wall. You don't get to see the guy cooking in real time. There's that human interaction that you get with a street food vendor, where he's making the food right in front of you.
You don't get to see the cockroach with your own eyes.
Yeah, exactly.
I like to see that.
Yeah. In restaurants, in various restaurants in the United States, like let's say you're gonna go to a sushi bar or a sushi restaurant. Yeah, there'll be restaurants where they're making food in front of you, but it's just not the same. Out, you know, with the street food, I mean, you're paying, well, you know, that comes with the other element of cost as well. That same element we talked about. You're not paying that much, and you get to see the guy cooking the food right in front of you, and you get to interact with him. It's that whole human essence, it's that whole human interaction. I think that's lacking a lot.
Yeah, in the
they
United
need to.
States,
They really need that. They
I
really
mean, I
need to
don't
find
see it
a way.
elsewhere. Like I've seen it in Texas and
Yeah.
all these places that sort of picked up on the Mexican
Yeah.
idea, like you mentioned, that there and in California, but not really elsewhere in the States. Maybe in New York, the hot dog stand. You can see them
Yeah,
like
okay.
steaming up a hot dog and putting it in the bun and squirting on some mustard.
Yeah.
But that's about it.
I don't even back in New York. I don't recall. I don't have a good like recollection of like having a good interaction with a street food vendor. I think that's the whole thing with the human essence, the human interaction, along with the city design that really takes away the whole sense of community and human interaction. I think that's also one big thing, and those are the things that I really wish. All these things that we touched on, these are the things I feel like the United States can definitely improve on.
Yeah, besides having a state fair once a year or something.
Yeah, exactly. But I want to thank you guys so much. Thank you, Bobby. I want to thank you, Tim. So thank you for watching this interview. Please like and please subscribe. I'll see you soon.